Hello, how you doing? Today I'm going to introduce you to array in Java. More specifically, why do we need it, how to declare it, and how to use it. Before going to array, I'm going to talk a little bit about variable. We now know that how to declare a variable, which is start with the variable, the type of the variable, and then its name, and then equals, and then its value, with the value being optional. For example, we have string is the type of the variable, gray is the name, and d2 is the value. The same, int is the type, name shades is the name, 50 is the value. If you don't want to assign the value when you're declaring, you can assign the value separately by doing name equals value. So that's it for some basic information about variable. That's what we have for one variable. But if we have several variables that are similar, in this case we have 50 strings, that basically about 50 shades of gray, and we want the user to input this. But if you do it this way, by declaring each variable separately, it is very inefficient. So how can we do it better? One way you might think of is to loop 50 times. So it's a for loop because it has a number, a certain number of times that you're going to loop. So let's try to create a for loop with the index start at 1 and end at 50 and step of 1, and you declare the variable like string gray1, and then you kind of see there's a problem, because first time the loop start, I equals 1, and it declared a variable gray1. But then when I equals 2, it doesn't declare the variable gray2. We want this one to be gray2 at that time, right? It doesn't become gray2 because this is the name of the variable and it doesn't change. So in this case, if we want to have 50 strings, we have to do it manually, like the same thing that we want to avoid. What we kind of want is to have this being gray I, with the I being the index here. So basically, when you loop through the array, this I increased, so you can declare several variables. So this is where array comes into play, because with arrays you can do that. This is the syntax, but I'll go deeper into it. So what is an array? An array is a box of string that starts at 0, the element 0, not number 0. So for example, a box of 50 shades of gray starts at gray 0 and ends at gray 49. So this is a very important concept to remember, that an array starts at element 0. An array starts at element 0. Pretty weird, but that's how it does. So this is a very common mistake for someone that just start to learn about array. Just be attentive of it so that you can fix things, and then later on you will remember it. The same thing, that because it starts at 0 and it has 50 elements, it will end at the element's 49th. So there's no gray 50 in these 50 shades of gray string array that we're talking about. There's no gray 50. This is also a very common mistake, maybe even more common than the previous one. But in time, you will learn and you remember it. So now we understand the basic concept of array. let's try to declare it. The way you declare an array is pretty similar to the way you declare a variable, that you start with the type. In this case, the type is string. Then you follow with two brackets, and I prefer to call them a box. So you start with type string, then you follow by a box, and then you follow by the name of the array. Pretty straightforward. Next, if you want to add value to the array, you can do it in a pretty similar way to the way you add value to a variable. You have the equal sign, and then because it's an array, you will have two curly brackets here. Then you have the value of each element of that array inside the two curly brackets, separated by commas. So in this case, you have an array of two strings. The first one is grade 0, and the second one is grade 1. Again, be very attentive that an array starts at the 0 element. But this way you cannot do it if you want to declare an array that has 50 elements. It's basically too much. So there is another way of doing it, that you create an empty array. The way you do it is you declare an array normally, then equals, then you tell the computer to create a new string array that has 50 elements in it, right? So the number 50 here is the number of elements of that array. So it's basically like this. The computer will read this line, this part, and go and create 50 strings, 50 empty strings in its memory. Start with grade 0, end at grade 49. And again, no grade 50. So even though you see the number 50 here, this number is the number of elements in that array. It has nothing to do with the number 50 here. So again, no grade 50. Next, we're going to loop through the array in pretty much the same way. We start with I0 and end at I equals 49 with the step is 1. So why it started at 0? Because our array starts at 0, pretty straightforward, and ends at 49. Then what is inside the loop is you basically call the element that has the index I, right? Call the ith element of the array, and then you scan it. Pretty straightforward. The way the computer run this is, at first I equals 0, so you will call out the grade 0 here, and then you scan its value. Then the second time it will be I equals 1, and you scan the grade 1. And I equals 2, you can scan grade 2. So it keeps going, and with this you basically scan the whole array. You loop through the whole array and you scan every single element of it, one at a time. So this is very convenient. You only have to declare 1, right? And the rest is done with the loop. Perfect. There's one thing I think you might still wonder though, that why do we need to create an empty array beforehand? Because basically it doesn't do anything, right? Well, the reason for it is when you call the elements of the array, you basically need to have an array ready so that you can call its elements. The computer cannot call an element of the array without the array already there. So you need to create an empty array first. The next thing is that this is a very useful tool to have when you learn about array, because in several cases it will comes into handy. So you can see here that I changed the number 49 from the last code into gray dot length minus 1. Basically the name of the array dot length minus 1. So the length of the array basically is the number of elements in that array. So in this case, gray dot length will return 50 because this is the array of 50 elements, and it minus 1, so this will equals to 49, and it's basically the same thing as the previous code. So when do we need it? One of the most simple example is when the array length is unknown, so you don't know how many elements are there in that array. You will use this. Okay, summary. So an array is a box of things that has the same type. To declare an array, you say its type followed by 2 brackets and then its name. To add value to the array, you say equals. After declaring it, you type equal, and then you start with 2 curly brackets. Then you put the value of each element of that array inside the 2 curly brackets, separated by commas. To create an empty array, you declare it, and then you type new, and then the type of the array, followed by the number of elements in the array inside the brackets. To call an array element, you say its name, and then you say the index number of that element. To use the array length, you say its name, and then dot length. So that's all the basic information of an array, and I hope this video is helpful to you. See you next time.